Work is, without any question, one of the most important things in my life. I've always enjoyed what I do, whether it's the job I do today or the jobs I've done in the past. I've always taken a view that whatever I do, I must enjoy it. I work on the assumption that you get up on a Monday morning, and as a minimum till Friday evening, it's work. And that means whatever time. We're on 24/7. Actually, we're on 24/7, 365. On the manufacturing side, from the factory side of the team, we have a very strong team, and the day-to-day operations are managed by the team we have. I don't need to get involved on a day-to-day. However, where I do get very involved is anything that's new or development. So if there's a new project going on, wherever it is, what I would do is, it's something like Kilinochi at the present time. I'm very connected with what's going on there. There would be rarely 3 or 4 days go when I don't have some connectivity. However, getting up to the site would be on a need-to-do basis, because it doesn't need me to be there. The day-to-day running, the guys, we've got a very, very competent team. They do a great job. And sometimes we also have to remember to be a little bit hands-off. Otherwise, you become too much of a control freak. At MAS, we've always been passionate about sport, whether it's cricket, rugby, anything, swimming, athletics. We've been passionate about sport. Not just because MAS Active is part of the business, but it's just been part of the culture forever. So with my particular interest in motorsport, you cannot avoid a connectivity between MAS and motorsport. I was involved in competitive sport probably till about 8 or 10 years ago. And then around the year 2000, I became president of the Ceylon Motorsports Club, which is the club in Sri Lanka that is affiliated with the FIA, which is the world governing body for motorsport. I sort of thought that was probably where I was going to draw it a line and not get into racing after that. However, I felt I was missing out. I wasn't quite ready to hang my boots up. So I got back into the sport again. The team I'm working with at the moment are the people who supported me. Bandula Veerasinghe and his son Darin Veerasinghe, who run BRJW, are the key people who really supported it. And they got me into the sport with an entry point car, which I used for a couple of years. And then I found the car was really not competitive enough, and it was a little old. And I got a bit interested, so then they said to me, why don't we upgrade that to something a little bit newer? So that's what we did. So the car I'm running at the moment is run by them. It's a Subaru Impreza STI Series 8. And they prepared the car for me. It's done through the garage. They do most of the mechanical type work. And there's a tuner from the UK, David Rowe, who comes out. And David's the guy who does all the final setup and tuning for the races.
We're here for the Colombo night races to tune Shirendra's car. The main difference that we've got this weekend is we've got to run with a 34mm restrictor, and there's a big difference in the way that the car needs to be tuned for this, really. So, you know, the turbocharger has to be specially set up for it, and we also have to, you know, make sure there's a lot of safety limits in the engine setup to make sure that, you know, nothing gets damaged, etc.
For the night races, we have no opportunity to practice. We turn up on the qualifying day. We are given one 20-minute session, and in that 20-minute session, it is our chance to go out there, learn the track, figure out how the car will handle, hope that you've got all your combinations right, the right tyres. We select our tyres based on it, we select the suspension settings. We don't have a chance in this particular race to come in and even change those.
I'm the chief scrutineer for motor cars. So what we do is mainly we check on the safety aspects of the car. When it comes to the formulas, we know that the technical aspects of these formula cars are on the same specs. But when it comes to the other cars, the repairers, the builders of those cars are different. So on those cars, there are certain technical aspects as per regulations that we need to check. Our main function here today is, because it's a free circuit, we are very strict on safety. Also, the drivers, we make sure that the drivers know what the track is and the conditions they have to run.
It's a sport where, of course, you know, the younger guys sometimes have a lot more guts, and sometimes I find myself now struggling a little bit, not wanting to take maybe a few risks that I would in the past. 1/10 of a second is a huge amount of time. So we're running around a track that takes, you know, 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes to go around, and in that time, 1/10 of a second is a big time. The difference on the grid between the first and 10th is probably going to be less than 1 second. race goes by that something doesn't go wrong sometime in the car. The biggest problems we normally have are heating related, particularly in Sri Lanka. So things that overheat, two things overheat: the engine can overheat and the brakes can overheat. Those are two things that go wrong. When we're driving the car, we have to be mindful. So I'm watching the gauges that will tell me if the engine is overheating. And I can tell from the pressure on the brake whether the brakes are going to overheat. The problem with the brake overheating is if your brakes overheat, they just go. You suddenly lose your brakes. And that is pretty scary when you come to a junction, to a turn-off point, and you hit the brakes and there are no brakes. I had a challenge in the run-up to the race where the power of the car was slightly down. The reason for this is because for the Colombo street race, we have to use a restrictor to control the speed of the car. And unfortunately, when they set my car up with the restrictor, which was done uniquely, they couldn't get the power to where it needed to be. I was at about 85 to 90% of power. So we went into the qualifying day knowing there was a problem. In fact, 10 hours before the qualifying, we were debating whether to run at all. Race day started from 14th. Sat in the car and watched the lights go to red, and things went wrong immediately, all over the place. Went wrong for me, went wrong around the outside the car. For me, the problem was there is a setting on the car that we use only to launch the car. It's called anti-lag, and it gives me a little bit of extra power off the start line. I used that setting, and for some reason, with the restrictor set up, it failed. And what happened is the car started and slowed. I realized immediately what the problem was, and I quickly switched off the anti-lag setting. And what happened in that time was that another couple of cars whizzed past us. And there was a red car, and he tried to shoot past, and he actually clipped another car and went cascading straight in front of my car into the barriers, right across my face. So we restarted the race, and actually the restart for me went very well. I was really happy. I knew there was a fault on the anti-lag, so I didn't use it. And what I did was I stuck to the left side of the track because it's a left-hand bend, the first one. And those guys went wide. They drifted wide with their speed, and I was able to nip through on the inside. So I had, and then ahead of me there was another couple of cars that had some light collision. They were a bit unstable. I used that opportunity. So it was more being opportunistic rather than by plan. So I managed to pick up on the mistakes of others. There is no room when you're running a race to relax and sit back and think everything is going fine. It just doesn't happen. The concentration that you have to put in for every second of the run is just immense. At one point I lost a bit of concentration. It was a wet day, and we were having to keep the cars on the dry section of the track. Otherwise, if you slip, the car tires have no tread. They're what we call slicks. And unfortunately, at one point I just lost my concentration. I allowed the car to slip onto the wet ground. Went around a sharp bend, left-hander, and I spun the car. I came to a standstill. I was able to swing it around and carry on without having any serious damage, and without hitting another car. One car went past me. So with that, I dropped from 7th to 8th place. Picked up, and funnily enough, the fault that had been there before seemed to have fixed itself with that little incident. So I was better on the pace, but I was a long way behind the guy who was in 7th place at that point. And then close towards the end of the race, one of the cars in front of us had an accident. So he dropped out, and that gave me a finish in 7th. Catching me up, right? So we're coming behind.
You got everyone.
Got everybody out. The funny thing, he sort of pushed me right to the end, and then he came off, so I could have easily kept going at that point. The thing is, if you ease off, you're going to go straight into it. So I thought I'd just keep the foot down and crank and keep it moving.
Totally the other way.
At that point, it was just full. Actually, I was coming to that too fast, and I was struggling to find the right turn. So for me, at the end of the day, having worried whether I could even run the race because of a power issue, having qualified 14th and coming 7th eventually, with a group of the guys who are the best at it in the country, with the limited time and effort I put into it, I was very happy.